Stop procrastinating and start achieving your goals. It was a chilly Monday morning when Jack, a young entrepreneur, stood at the edge of a vast, empty office space. The soft light filtered through the large windows, casting long shadows across the floor. This was it. The moment he had worked tirelessly for, the culmination of his ambition. A small, scrappy startup that he had nurtured for years, now finally living in this quiet, sterile office. The desk was neatly set up with his laptop, stacks of paperwork and coffee mugs, everything in its right place, except for the most important thing: his work. There was something almost poetic about the silence of the space, a dream that had become reality, yet Jack felt like an imposter. How did he get here without truly feeling like he belonged? The weight of unfinished tasks seemed to hang heavier than the air around him, suffocating him in a sense of endless waiting. He looked at the pile of papers, emails to send, meetings to schedule, plans to finalize, and his heart sank. The pile, like the clock on the wall, never seemed to get any smaller. It only seemed to grow larger with each passing day. He'd been putting it off for weeks, telling himself that tomorrow would be better. Tomorrow, he'd feel more motivated. Tomorrow, he'd be ready. But tomorrow never came. Jack would lie in bed at night, staring at the ceiling, his thoughts racing with possibilities. Every day, he felt the gnawing sense of shame, knowing he could be so much further ahead, yet always choosing comfort over progress. And as the sun rose each morning, the cycle repeated itself, each day blending into the next, a blur of half-promises to himself. But then, out of nowhere, the thought hit him. What if I'm sabotaging my own success? It wasn't a loud epiphany, but a quiet, unsettling realization. The truth was simple, but too uncomfortable to confront. He wasn't just procrastinating because of a lack of time, discipline, or willpower. He was procrastinating because he was terrified of the very thing he wanted most: success. What if succeeding meant changing everything? What if it meant facing the very fears he'd been running from? The uncomfortable, deep-down knowledge that achieving his goals might come at a cost he wasn't prepared to pay. The realization clung to him like the morning fog, wrapping him in a haze of doubt and questions. He was at the crossroads of a life he thought he knew, and one that, if he dared to step into it, would demand everything. He could feel the tension building in his chest as the minutes passed, each second dragging him further into the depths of his indecision. But something shifted inside him, not in a dramatic, world-changing way. It wasn't like a light bulb turned on, or a voice from the heavens spoke to him. It was much quieter than that. His focus sharpened. The edges of his world began to blur, and all he could see was the stack of work before him. The pile didn't seem so impossible now. It was just tasks. It wasn't a mountain anymore. It was a series of small steps. Each piece of paper held a promise, not a burden. Yet, even as the shift began to take hold, another question crept into his mind. What if the very things he had been doing to motivate himself, the productivity hacks, the endless to-do lists, the constant planning, were the very reason he was stuck in the first place? What if he had been preparing for success in the wrong way? What if the key to breaking free wasn't about doing more, but about doing less? Jack's mind raced, his fingers lightly tapping the desk as he pondered the irony of it all. He had spent so much time looking for the perfect method, the magic key to success, but had never thought to ask whether he was even prepared to handle it. Maybe success wasn't about the right tools or strategies, it was about a mindset shift. The realization hit him again, this time with a bit more force. Maybe procrastination wasn't the problem. Maybe it was the fear of doing something that would change everything in his life forever. The day dragged on, but Jack was no longer focused on the pile of work before him. Instead, he became absorbed in the idea that he might not be afraid of failure. No, he had been afraid of success all along. The success that would force him to show up every day, even when he didn't feel like it. The success that demanded consistency, effort, and sacrifices that he hadn't even considered yet. Hours passed. Jack took a deep breath, staring out the window. The sun had moved to the other side of the sky, casting long shadows across the floor. It was then that something profound happened. Jack stood up, walked over to the window, and stared at the view outside. For the first time in a long time, he let go of the idea of perfection. He stopped thinking about all the things he hadn't done and focused on the fact that he was here, now. He was already further than he had ever been before. The future didn't need to be perfect. It just needed him to show up. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. For the first time, there was no overwhelming feeling of dread or paralysis. The list of tasks didn't look like an obstacle anymore. It felt like an invitation. But then came the hardest part, the question that lingered in the back of his mind. Could he actually make the choice to start? He had spent so many years planning for success, but had he ever truly been ready to embrace it? To embrace the uncertainty, the sacrifice, and the demands it would make on him. As the sun began to set, casting a golden light across the room, Jack made a decision. It wasn't an epic moment of triumph, but a quiet, intentional choice to take the first step forward. No grand gestures, no promises of perfect execution, just the decision to act. And so, Jack clicked the button. He sent the first email, scheduled the first meeting, made the first move. It was small. It was far from perfect, but it was a start. He had decided to stop hiding behind his fear of success, and in doing so, he had begun to break the cycle of procrastination that had held him back for so long. But as the day ended, Jack still found himself thinking about one thing. Was it enough? Was this really the breakthrough he had been waiting for? Or would tomorrow bring the same struggle? And just like that, the cycle continued. But now, there was something different in the air, something Jack couldn't quite define, but he knew he would never be the same again. Jack's story isn't a one-off tale of sudden success. It's a hidden reality, a story of someone who had everything they wanted but wasn't ready to claim it. Procrastination isn't just about avoiding tasks. It's about avoiding the uncomfortable truth that we might not be ready for what comes next. It's not enough to be busy. We must be willing to do the work that pushes us forward, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it forces us to confront our own fears and doubts. So, here's a question for you. What are you avoiding by waiting for the perfect moment to start? What would happen if you just decided to begin right now? Comment below with "I'm ready" if you've made the decision to take the first step today. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it, and if you want to know how Jack's journey unfolds, stick around because this is just the beginning.